Welcome back to the Get Off the Treadmill podcast for small business owners and entrepreneurs, where we show you how to build a successful business and to have a life too. We're going to dive into another topic that helps us make more money in less time and to get off the treadmill so we can experience a life of significance. And now, your host and the author of the #1 best-selling business book, Making Money is Killing Your Business, Chuck Blakeman.
Hi, Chuck Blakeman here again with you. Today we're going to talk about dual tracking, how every business grows up. There are no exceptions to this rule that I'm aware of, so let's dive right in. The right game in business isn't to make money. That's an income producer's mindset, not a business owner's mindset. I've had it. The right game in business is to build a business that makes money when you are not there. And to do that, you have to commit to dual tracking, which most business owners never embrace. I know I didn't for the longest time. And it's a major reason why we're all stuck being income producers and not making the money we hoped we would make when we started our businesses. If you've raised kids, you've done dual tracking. If we see our kids as adults in the making, as we should, it motivates us to make decisions that will help them now, but especially as adults. If we also see our businesses as growing up and giving back to us at some point, it motivates us the same way. We have to take care of the tyranny of the urgent that we talked about in another podcast, while also at the very same time addressing the priority of the important every time. Because the important things that never show up on our to-do list are the very things that will, over time, keep tyrannical urgent things from dominating the list and our lives. Dual tracking is using the same activity to do two things at once. As an example, finding clients now and using the same activity to build freedom for yourself later. I have to make money today, right? While I also answer the question, how do I build a business that makes money when I am not there? If all I do is react to the tyranny of the urgent all week, I will react to it and solve a lot of present day problems, but I will never address the things that will eventually give me freedom in my business, not from it. Dual tracking allows me to make more money in less time. It's basically the idea of inventing the wheel once, not reinventing it every time you repeat an activity in your business. So how do we dual track? In principle, and even I think in practice, it's actually quite simple, but it's not always easy. As I'm performing another tyrannical urgent task coming at me, like finding a customer, buying supplies, making the chairs, delivering the chairs, sending an invoice, collecting the check, making sure customers and teams are happy, and dealing with accounting, as I'm doing all those tyrannically urgent things, I ask myself this question: how can I use this activity to build a business that makes money when I am not there? Here's an example from one of my own businesses. When I first started advising and mentoring other business owners in 2006, I was alone. I was a sole producer. To get clients, I started this thing I called the Business Leaders Insight Lunch, which quickly got known as the BLI Lunch. We took over a private room at a restaurant and invited business owners to come buy their own lunch and discuss a business principle, practice, or tool that I would share. It was just 6 to 10 of us for months, but eventually it grew to as many as 75 people at its peak for a few years, even though we had stopped marketing it after the first year. And I'll share more on how to cut out the front end of marketing in other posts. You can do it too. So we met every Tuesday for over 9 years. When it started, I needed clients, and it was a great way to serve the business community with my experience, while also creating credibility for me and my business that might lead to clients. The easy thing would have been to focus solely on using the lunch to make money right then and there. Lead the discussion, get some clients, produce, get paid, do another lunch. But I had made the mistake of focusing on making money in 5 earlier businesses, and I was determined this time to figure out how to get the business to where it made more money when I wasn't there, so that I could have freedom in my business. So I wasn't just satisfied making money from the BLI lunch. I was on the hunt to find ways to build a business that makes money for me when I am not there. I couldn't articulate it at the time, but what I had stumbled on was the mindset of growing what I now call a mature business. So for the first couple of weeks that I was recruiting and working on my first BLI launch, I was constantly asking myself, how can I use this activity to build a business that makes money when I'm not there? What I hit upon wasn't all that eye-opening, but it was powerful and incredibly helpful to me. As I grew, I knew I wanted other future facilitators of our 3 to 5 clubs to be able to easily have their own BLI lunch at some point, or start speaking at mine as well. So I did 2 things that as a left-handed, right-brained ADHD dyslexic, I had never done before. First, I wrote a process. Yes, an actual written process. Something until that moment I had always believed was something only big companies wasted their time, money, and energy doing. Until then, processes were always something I had in my head, and I could easily and efficiently execute it myself and even explain it to others over and over and over again. But the desire to build something that made money when I was not there required that I write it down, that I get it out of my head, through my heart, and out my hands onto a piece of paper so that others could do what I do. I learned later that what was really happening was that I was putting a part of me on a piece of paper so that when I was not there, others would know how to do things the way I had always done them for my customers. And since then, to the dismay of my tender ego, I've learned that once people know what you want, they many times can do it better, faster, and cheaper than you did. The second thing I did to build that lunch that I'd also never done before, instead of winging it with a topic at lunch, which I could easily have done every time, I wrote a leader's guide for future facilitators to follow each time and a handout for my attendees that future facilitators could also use and modify if they started their own lunches in other cities. I did this for every lunch. This took time, effort, and commitment, three things I had always expended on solving reoccurring problems or reinventing the wheel every time I did something for a client. Writing all this down added probably an hour of prep time each lunch, but I was now dual tracking. Again, something I didn't have a name for at the time. Instead of just holding a lunch, I used that potential money-making service activity to help me build a business that would also make money when I wasn't there. I also documented the process of starting and hosting that lunch, finding the right venue, marketing it to the right people, and I documented everything that went into the lunch that I was creating. As I did things and learned, I wrote those learnings into that process. Not a single bit of any of this made me any money today. And I could have seen all this as just a distraction from being able to make even more money today, right now. But now that we have facilitators and clients in other cities around the world, all I have to do is hand them the process, the 100+ presentations I've already produced, the recordings, and provide general guidance, and they can just follow the process, add their own fresh examples to the handouts, and jump right in. The lesson for me, if you keep asking the question, how can I use this activity to build a business that makes money when I'm not there? You can find helpful ways to dual track almost every activity. After a couple of weeks of lunches, I thought of another way to make money later when I was not around. I bought a high-end handheld recorder and started recording my talks. I now have well over 100 of them in the can, and besides training other 3 to 5 club facilitators with them, there are multiple other uses for them, such as podcasts, webinars, pulling out bits and pieces as marketing shorts on social media, and many other uses. And beyond what I even imagined I could do with them, they ended up forming the basis of over a dozen workshops and seminars we continued to do 18 years after the lunches started. And they gave me the material for my first book in 2010, Making Money is Killing Your Business, which was the #1 rated book of the year, beating out books by famous authors like Seth Godin, Bo Burlingham, and many other small business writers. In another podcast, we talked about the two opposing forces we are faced with every morning before we even get out of bed. The tyranny of the urgent, all those things that come flying at us every day that require that we react to them, and the priority of the important, the few things that sit quietly in the corner waiting for us to proactively engage them so that they can help us solve the urgent things permanently. These lunches, which we no longer do, still make money for me now while I'm not in the office because I took the time to stop and proactively engage the priority of the important, like writing down processes and creating handouts. Doing the important things almost never make us money right away, but they almost always make us a lot more money down the road because they save us from the tyranny of the urgent, reinventing the wheel, and they help us permanently solve urgent things that before would have reoccurred with the regularity of the sun coming up at more like wind and snow in our face every day. When you dual track your efforts and feed both the urgent and the important at the same time, you've found the sweet spot. Samantha and Cam DeWalt have owned a wholesale and retail window store for 22 years, and they do about $2.5 million per year in gross revenues, and it provides a real nice lifestyle for them. They told me they were successful and quite happy with the 22 years behind them and the next 15 or so in front of them before they retired. But before I tried to talk them out of retirement, we talked about what it means to have true wealth, which I believe means your business regularly gives back time and money, not just money. I could see Samantha's face getting tighter and tighter as I talked about time and money, not just money. After a long few seconds of silence, she turned to me and said quietly, "I'm so sick of this. It doesn't seem like we can ever truly leave for a few days. This thing," and I think by this thing she meant her business, "this thing is like a millstone around our necks. 22 years later, she was still investing as much time and emotion into her business as when it was born. It had never grown up to begin giving back time along with money. 22 years later, she was still a hostage to her business. It will wear you out, and it had worn her to the bone. So we got started helping them that day by showing them how to dual track. For the first time in 22 years, they were building a business, not just making money. A couple of months later, they lost their highly valued office manager who'd been with them for almost the whole 22 years. When I checked in a couple of weeks after that, I asked Samantha how the new person, Jenna, was doing. And she said, in the past, it would have been 6+ months of relearning and trial and error in any position we have. And that would have cost us a lot of money and customer confidence. But because of some of the simple processes we stopped to write down and put in place, we only had to sit with Jenna for a few hours over a couple of days, and she got this thing figured out. Jenna, who was sitting right there, smiled and pointed to the simple process we had put together for the original office manager and said, I'm doing great as long as I have this. Samantha and Cam were on their way to building a mature business for the first time in 22 years. They were gaining confidence that they could see this happen very quickly in the next year or so, allowing them to actually enjoy their business for many years to come. These are just 2 examples of dual tracking. It's not about being clever or creative, but simply being committed to finding ways to use every money-making activity in your business to pay your bills now, and at the same time to help you build a future business that will make money when you're away doing something else important to you. In dual tracking, it's critical to ask yourself, how can I use this activity to build a business that makes money when I'm not there? Ask that every day for every activity in your business, and your business will change dramatically and begin to actually grow up. If you are only focused on completing tasks today, your business will never get to maturity. If you're focused on building a business that makes money when you are not there, dual tracking is your ticket for freedom in your business, not from it. Enjoy the ride and keep going. I'll see you in the next podcast.
That wraps up another episode of the Get Off the Treadmill podcast. If you found this podcast helpful, please subscribe and hit the like button to ensure you are receiving the latest tools you need to grow your business and to get off the treadmill. If you want more information on the 3 to 5 Club, the Crankset Group, or to book Chuck as a business advisor, speaker, or workshop leader, you can contact us at grow@cranksetgroup.com. Until next time, have a great week.